Today we have Tim Schmidt from Rollga with us, and he is going to be telling us a little bit about Rollga and the benefits of it, and he's going to give us a demonstration on how it works.
Yeah. Well, Rollga is basically just a simple foam roller. It's made out of EPP foam. It's very simple, but the big difference is a standard foam roller would be flat. And what you see with this foam roller is there's little contours, and these contours actually allow for us to protect the spine, protect the shins, protect the hips, but it also gives us what's called omnidirectional type foam rolling. So we get different directions and angles of pressure, because on a standard foam roller you only get one angle of pressure. It's 90 degrees. With this roller you actually get 45 degrees, different angles. You get no pressure in some zones. You get 20% body weight pressure in others. You get the full body weight pressure in 90 coming up at different angles here. So it really encompasses a large way of foam rolling in multiple directions. So this roller kind of allows you just to do more than what you could do with a standard foam roller.
Okay. So how did you come about designing the Rollga?
Yeah, so really what kind of came about was Taggart Down area, or the co-founder, what he wanted was he wanted to put a foam rolling class into some various clinics that we were a part of in gyms. And what came down to it was I said, well, let's get us some rollers with our logo on it. And he says, well, there's nothing really out there that's good. They're all pretty well junk. And so he's an engineer and a physicist, and he started just kind of cutting different pieces out, different foam blocks. Matter of fact, it started with just five little balls kind of connected, and then some wiffle balls and a rubber sleeve. And some of that kind of led to different things, to where he started to say, you know what, we could notch out the spot for the shins. And after he did that, because he's a triathlete, he decided, well, it'd be nice also to give a little space for the spine. And we tried a little bit wider apart. We tried zones that were closer together, but what we found is when they're too close together or too sharp of an edge, you actually pinch the skin, and the skin rolls between the vertebrae. And then also, if they're too wide, it's no different than a flat roller, just covering more surface area. So we wanted to make sure to tighten things up to give the appropriate angles, and then a lower depth and a higher depth for different variations of pressure.
So what are the benefits then of using the Rollga?
Yeah, so the main thing, number one, is to increase blood flow. What we want to do is we want to bring healthy, oxygen-rich blood flow back to the body. And then also what happens too is our muscles are fibrous, right? And so when we look at those little fibers, and if we zoom in on just one fiber, it looks like this. Now when that fiber gets over-responsive or over-reactive, it wants to knot up. And you get what's called a trigger point, or a knot. The only way to get rid of that knot is you have to compress it and roll it out. And when it's open like this and you have a knot, the blood flows in and it stops. It circulates right at the knot and it doesn't go beyond that. So now the rest of that little muscle fiber is oxygen deprived. So if we can compress that, roll it out, it allows the oxygen to roll through. The next thing is when we're working out, if we look at that fiber and zoom in again, there's these little cells. They look like little boxcars lined up on a train track. When those cells start to separate from working out, they have to fill in with fluid. And when that fluid fills in, that's what causes that stiffness, because there's fluid in there. So what we're doing with foam rolling is we're pulling those little boxcars together, we're pulling that fluid out of in between those little cells, and we're bringing cellular hydration, or fascial hydration, I should say, at a cellular level. So it's really kind of cool what we can do in that. Also, we get little stuck tissue. Our range of motion can only be so much. There's kind of a difference between range of motion and flexibility. Flexibility is a tensile strength of your muscle. How far can it stretch? Most of it is genetically coded with us. So I can say, well, I'm this flexible, or is this just range of motion? And so if I can release that stuck tissue, say in the shoulder, and I gain that range of motion back, all of a sudden now I'm more flexible, because that fascial tissue wants to harden and kind of become unhealthy around the joint. And when it does that, it's just basically you need to roll it, and then you start to break it up. Best example is if you're peeling a really tough orange and you can't get the white stuff off.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the fascial layer in the muscle. And what we can do is you can take that orange, compress it on the counter, roll it under the palm of your hand, applying lots of pressure. And then afterwards you pop that open and the skin just falls right off, because that fascial layer is broken down, but it doesn't affect the actual little cells of the orange. So you got a good orange with very easily to feel it. So it's kind of cool.
Very interesting analogy. I like that. So awesome. Yeah.